If you have the courage to hear the full nightmare, stay till the end. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to uncover more terrifying stories like this. I realized something was horribly wrong the night I saw my own shadow standing in the hallway before I even stepped out of my room. I had moved into the old Victorian house on Ashford Lane, Portland, just 3 days earlier. It looked peaceful from the outside. Quiet street, tall maple trees, and a faint smell of damp wood that reminded me of forgotten summers. But inside, the house carried a silence that wasn't normal, a heavy, breath-holding silence, like the walls were listening. That night, around 2:47 a.m., I woke to the sound of a light tap, 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 almost like fingernails brushing the wooden floor. For a moment, I thought it was a branch hitting the window, but the sound was coming from the hallway. I got out of bed slowly, the cold air biting my skin. When I opened the door just a few inches, the dim glow of the corridor lamp revealed something impossible. A shadow stretching across the hallway wall. My shadow. Same shape, same shoulders, same stance. Except, I was still inside my room. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. The silence around me felt terrifyingly alive, like the entire corridor was holding a pulse I couldn't hear. The figure on the wall didn't move. It stood perfectly still, facing the attic stairs. The attic door was closed, yet the shadow pointed directly toward it. Its arm extended in a way mine wasn't. A chill crawled up my spine. I stepped back. The shadow didn't. I whispered to myself, "This isn't real, this isn't real." But it didn't vanish. For a few seconds, the entire house felt suspended in a tension so sharp it could cut skin. Then suddenly, the corridor light flickered. Once, twice, and on the third flicker, the shadow's head slowly tilted, as if turning to look at me through the crack in my door. My heart began pounding so loud the hallway silence felt like it was echoing it back at me. I closed the door gently, hands shaking, and pressed my back against it. That's when I heard the whisper, not from inside my room, not from the hallway, but from directly above me, in the attic. A soft, dragging sound, like something large being pulled across dusty floorboards. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. When morning finally arrived, sunlight spilled across the corridor, warm and harmless. I stepped out hesitantly and looked toward the hallway wall. Nothing. No shadow. But the attic door, locked since I moved in, was now slightly open. Just an inch. Enough to show a dark slice of the void inside. Enough to tell me last night wasn't a dream. Morning light may comfort normal houses, but on Ashford Lane, in that old Victorian skeleton I had moved into, daylight only felt like a thin disguise, one that barely covered whatever pulsed underneath. The inch-wide gap in the attic door bothered me all day. I tried to convince myself I had imagined it, but wood doesn't move on its own, and shadows don't arrive ahead of their owners. The house sat unnervingly still as I made coffee in the narrow kitchen. Every few minutes, I found myself glancing at the staircase, half expecting to see something or someone watching. By afternoon, curiosity dug its claws into me. I climbed the stairs carefully, each step creaking like brittle bones under my weight. The air grew colder the higher I went, and by the time I reached the attic landing, I could see my breath faintly fogging the air. The attic door stood there, old white paint peeling off like dead skin. I placed my hand on the knob. It was warm. Warm, as if someone had been holding it moments ago. I felt something twist in my stomach. Slowly, I pushed the door open. The darkness inside swallowed the light from the hallway. Dusty air drifted out, carrying a strange scent, charcoal and damp paper, almost like an abandoned artist's studio. A single sliver of light from a tiny window cut across the room, illuminating particles dancing silently in the thick gloom. There was nothing inside at first glance, just old boxes, some broken furniture, and the cold wooden floor. But then, a faint scrape echoed from the far side of the attic. I froze. Another scrape. Then a soft drag, like fabric being pulled across the floorboards. I leaned forward slightly, and that's when I saw it. Against the far wall was a large sheet of yellowed paper pinned unevenly to the wood. A charcoal sketch. A sketch of me. The hair, the jawline, the posture, it was unmistakably my silhouette. But the eyes were completely blacked out, scribbled so heavily the charcoal had dug into the paper. I stared at it, feeling a cold pressure spread through my chest. The sketch wasn't there when I moved in. The previous owner's boxes were dust-choked and untouched. This drawing looked fresh. My hands trembled as I took a step closer. That's when the corridor light behind me flickered again, and a long, stretched shadow slid across the attic floor. My shadow. But I wasn't standing in a way that should have cast it there. I wasn't close enough to the light. I wasn't even angled right. Cold air seeped from the keyhole. Cold, and a faint sound. Not tapping. Not breathing. Laughing. Soft, muffled, like a child giggling behind a wall. Her stomach twisted. She backed away slowly, eyes locked on the door as the giggling turned into hiccup-like bursts of excitement. Then it stopped instantly, as if the thing had realized she was listening. Her phone rang. Not a notification. A call. Caller ID, unknown. Emily hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice spoke. Whispered. Urgent. Don't leave your apartment. Emily froze. Who is this? You don't understand, the whisper said. It doesn't want you to leave. If you try, it follows you. If you run, it becomes faster. Emily swallowed. What is it? A soft gasp on the other end. Then a single line before the call cut off. It lives in Briarwood's walls. And once you hear it, it learns your voice. The call ended with a dead tone. Emily stood alone in her living room, surrounded by bright lights, but feeling watched, studied, by something just beyond the plaster. The walls were breathing again, and this time, they breathed in sync with her heartbeat. The breathing inside the walls grew louder, slow, dragging, like wet lungs struggling to expand. Emily stepped back until her shoulders pressed against the far wall of the living room, the cold plaster biting into her spine. The lights above her flickered. Once, twice, then steadied. But the shadows had shifted. They looked wrong, as if something behind the walls had pressed against them, stretching them out like thin rubber. Her phone buzzed again. A text message. Also timestamped 2:13 a.m. But her phone showed only 10:41 p.m. The message was just one word. Emily. Her name. All caps. No sender. Her hands shook as she typed. Who is this? Before she hit send, 3 dots appeared, as if someone on the other end was already typing a reply. But no message came. Instead, the walls shifted. A deep thud echoed inside them, like a heavy body repositioning itself. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Another thud, closer this time, beneath the paint, beneath the plaster, moving toward her. Emily stumbled away as the thuds circled her, crawling through the walls with impossible speed. They traveled from the living room to the kitchen, then to the hallway, then back again, all in seconds. It wasn't walking. It wasn't crawling. It was sliding, dragging itself along the inside of the walls like a massive insect. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. Stop moving. Emily froze. A slow, rasping whisper seeped out from the wall behind her, barely audible, but unmistakably forming her name. Lily. Not Emily. Not exactly. It was learning, but not well. Like a creature trying to mimic human speech using a throat made for something else. She forced herself to speak, voice trembling. What do you want? The whisper came again, clearer this time. To finish. Finish what? Finish her? No, she wouldn't stay here. She grabbed her keys again, heading for the door. She didn't care what the voice on the phone warned. She'd take her chances outside. But just as her hand touched the doorknob, the entire apartment shuddered. A loud, violent slam hit the inside of the front door, leaving the wood vibrating. Emily screamed and stumbled back as cracks spiderwebbed across the surface of the door, as if something enormous had thrown itself against it from the hallway. But the hallway was empty. She could see it through the peephole, which meant the slam came from inside her apartment, not outside. Before she could run, her phone lit up. A voicemail. Automatic playback. Her own voice whispered through the speaker. Don't go near the walls. The message repeated, but on the second loop, something else joined in. Beneath the whisper, deeper, like another voice trying to speak with her vocal cords. Don't go near the walls. Emily dropped the phone, backing into the center of the room. And then she realized something horrifying. The breathing wasn't just coming from the walls anymore. It was coming from the floor beneath her feet. Emily froze, her heels pressing into the cold wooden floor as the rhythmic breathing grew louder, deeper, and more deliberate. Each inhale sounded like it was collecting the air from the entire apartment, and each exhale pushed against her chest. She bent down, placing her ear to the floor. The boards vibrated faintly, almost like a pulse beneath her fingertips. Then she heard it, a soft scraping. Something was moving underneath the floorboards. Panic surged. She grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen counter and shone it toward the gaps between the boards. Nothing. Only dark, empty spaces. A faint smell hit her. Iron. Metallic. Warm. Not fresh blood, she realized, but something worse, decayed. Like the apartment itself was rotting from the inside. Another soft whisper rose from beneath the floor. "Emily, come down." A soft, high-pitched giggle echoed from upstairs, followed by a dragging sound, the unmistakable rhythm of small feet hovering above the floor. Ayla froze, her breath caught in her throat. "Nora," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The staircase creaked as if someone was descending. Her flashlight fell to the floor, illuminating the bottom step for just a second. A small figure hovered there, a child, pale, eyes wide and unblinking, mouth moving in silent rhythm. Ayla's stomach churned. She stepped back, tripping over the rug. She scrambled to pick up her phone. Her hand shook violently as she texted her mother. "Something is here. Nora's room. It's not safe. Please tell Grandma." No reply. Just a single line flashing on the screen. "Do you see us now?" Ayla's chest tightened. She looked up. The hallway behind her was full of shadowy figures, small silhouettes, tilting their heads in unison. The humming grew louder, layered into multiple voices now, singing nursery rhymes that twisted in impossible ways. Ayla backed away, heart racing, the flashlight slipping from her hands. The figures remained, watching silently. Then, from the corner of her eye, she caught movement, something sliding along the wall toward her, faster than it should, a pale hand reaching for her. She screamed, finally, a raw, piercing sound that echoed through the house. But even as her scream filled the air, the figures didn't vanish. They only whispered, in dozens of overlapping voices. "We've been waiting." Ayla's breath came in short, ragged gasps. Her eyes darted around, trying to find any escape. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the corridor went silent. The shadows receded, leaving the hallway empty. But the humming remained, soft, taunting, and almost triumphant. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Ayla's hands were slick with sweat as she edged down the hallway, her flashlight shaking violently. Every corner seemed alive, twisting subtly whenever she blinked. The house was no longer her sanctuary. It had become a stage for something ancient and patient. From Nora's room came a faint creak. The door, once firmly closed, now stood slightly ajar. A soft light leaked through the crack, though no bulb had ever been in that room. The humming was louder now, and layered, each note distorted, resonating in ways that made the walls themselves vibrate. Ayla whispered to herself, "I need to check. I need to make sure she's safe." Her steps were cautious, but deliberate. The hallway stretched unnaturally long before her, and shadows stretched along the walls like reaching fingers. She could feel the air shift as she drew closer, a cold draft brushing the back of her neck. The door creaked further, slowly opening wider on its own. The humming swelled, childlike yet menacing. Ayla shivered. She had to see. She had to confront it. Peering inside, she saw Nora's bed, empty. The room was untouched, yet something felt wrong. The air smelled faintly metallic, and her flashlight caught movement in the corner. A small, pale figure crouched, rocking back and forth. Its head tilted unnaturally, eyes dark and hollow, singing quietly. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Ayla's stomach churned. She swallowed hard. She wanted to scream, to run, to throw herself out of the room, but her feet felt rooted. The figure slowly straightened, turning to face her. Its gaze was unblinking, penetrating. Then, a whisper, soft but sharp. "Join us." The door slammed shut behind her. Ayla spun, heart hammering. She tried to force it open, but it wouldn't budge. Panic surged. She banged on the door, her knuckles raw. The humming now seemed to echo inside her skull, each note reverberating like a drumbeat of terror. A tiny giggle echoed from the corner of the room. The figure had vanished, but the bed sheets moved as if something invisible had just leaped off. The walls warped slightly, the ceiling dipping and stretching. The room itself seemed to breathe. Ayla's phone buzzed violently on the floor. She scrambled to it, hands shaking. Another message appeared, no sender. "You're here. You can't leave." Ayla's pulse skyrocketed. Her mind raced. Every instinct screamed for escape, But every exit seemed blocked by shadows, by whispers, by invisible hands pressing against the edges of reality. Suddenly, the rocking chair in the corner began to move, slowly, back and forth, though nothing sat on it. The humming intensified, multiple voices now chanting nursery rhymes in unison, each note slightly off-key, discordant, eerie. Ayla backed away toward the far wall, bumping into the dresser. Drawers opened on their own, sliding out slowly, then slamming shut. She pressed herself against the wall, heart thundering. The shadows seemed to pulse in time with the humming. And then, from under the bed, a small hand reached out. Pale, thin, impossibly long fingers curling, hovering just above the floor. A single whisper slithered into her ear. "You can't hide." I scrambled to my feet and ran toward the attic door. My hand clutched the knob, trying to pull it open, but it was stuck, locked from the outside. Panic surged. The shadow flowed closer, and I could feel a pressure in the room, as if the walls themselves were bending inward. My lungs burned with each breath. Then I remembered the trail of black charcoal dust. Slowly, I followed it toward a corner where boxes were stacked haphazardly. Beneath them, I saw the creaking shape of the old attic ladder, leading to a smaller loft above. It wasn't much, but it was my only escape. I grabbed the ladder and began climbing, each rung groaning under my weight. The shadow flowed after me, stretching, reshaping, reaching with a long, tendril-like arm. From above, a cold wind gusted. It smelled of charcoal and rotting paper, like the house itself exhaling. My foot hit the loft floor. I glanced back. The shadow paused at the ladder, waiting, patient, smiling with its absence of face. I crouched low, scanning the loft. Dust covered the wooden floor, boxes stacked against the walls, and a mirror leaning in the corner. I crept closer. My reflection stared back, but it wasn't just me. Behind my mirrored reflection, a black silhouette stood, mimicking every movement, stretching slightly longer than my own body. I gasped and stumbled. The shadow behind me moved independently, detaching itself from the wall, its form flowing like smoke. The whisper returned, chillingly calm. "You are mine, as it was mine before and before." The mirror fogged. My reflection warped. The figure in the glass reached out with its void-like hand. I realized in horror. It didn't just want me to see it. It wanted me inside it. I backed away toward the loft edge and froze. The attic door creaked open slowly from below. And I knew, whatever was behind that door wasn't waiting for me anymore. It was coming up. The attic door at the bottom of the ladder creaked wider, then wider still, until the darkness below yawned open like a vast, breathing throat. I froze at the loft's edge, gripping the wooden beam so tightly my knuckles whitened. My breath steamed in the cold air. From below came a slow, heavy footstep, not the fluid glide of the shadow, but something solid, weight-bearing, something human. The temperature dropped so sharply the glass mirror behind me cracked with a soft but violent snap. I didn't dare turn around. Another footstep. Closer. Deliberate. Someone, or something, was climbing the attic ladder. My pulse slammed painfully against my ribs. "Who's there?" I whispered, though I already knew no normal voice would answer. But a voice did answer. A man's voice. Low, shaky, tired. Right below me. "Don't move, it sees movement." I leaned forward just enough to see the man's face appear over the top rung of the ladder. My stomach twisted. It was the same man from the Nest Cam footage. The blurred-faced stranger from my porch. But now, up close, he wasn't blurry. He was pale, gaunt, with deep blue veins marking his skin like cracked marble. His eyes were sunken, ringed in purple hollows, and his torn gray coat looked worse in person, damp, frayed, and dusted with charcoal. He climbed the last few rungs and collapsed onto the attic floor, breathing hard. "Close the loft hatch," he rasped. I hesitated. Below him, the shadow creature pulsed upward, stretching its form like liquid darkness pressed against glass. "Close it," he shouted. I grabbed the loft's wooden hatch and slammed it shut just as the shadow's hand surged upward, smearing a long black streak across the wood. The man grabbed my shoulder, his grip ice cold. "It followed you," he whispered. "It woke up because you moved into this house." His voice cracked as he spoke, like he hadn't used it in years. I stared at him. "Who are you?" He swallowed, eyes trembling. "My name is Daniel. Daniel Rook." My breath caught. That name. I had seen it. On the old, rusted mailbox at the end of Ashford Lane. The mailbox I thought belonged to the previous owner. You lived here? I asked. His voice trembled. I still do. Before I could respond, the loft hatch beneath us buckled. Once. Twice. The wood flexed inward, as though something heavy was pressing from below. Daniel's face turned pale. It knows you're with me. It's trying to finish what it started. Finish what? I whispered. He looked at me with hollow, haunted eyes. The shadow doesn't just copy people, he said. It replaces them. My stomach dropped. Below us, the hatch cracked sharply, a long fracture splitting down the center. The whole loft shook as the shadow forcefully rammed the wood. Daniel grabbed my arm. We need to get out before it takes your shape. Another violent slam. Dust rained from the ceiling. The hatch split open, and from the darkness below, a hand like liquid night reached through. The power didn't just go out this time. Every light in Block 47 died at once, as if something had inhaled all the electricity in one slow, greedy breath. The corridor outside my apartment turned completely black, except for the faint red emergency bulb that flickered like a heartbeat running out of blood. I pressed my back against the door, clutching the recording device that had captured Aiden's whispers from the night he vanished. The last thing he said, before the line drowned in static, echoed inside my head. Don't look at its face, no matter what. A sudden thud hit my door. Not a knock. Not like a human. More like someone had thrown their entire weight against it, testing its strength and enjoying the sound. I held my breath. Then, slowly, a shadow leaked from the gap beneath the door, not moving like smoke, more like thick oil pushing itself through a too small space. The shape stretched across the floor, long and crooked like broken fingers reaching for me. The hallway outside was silent. No footsteps, no breathing, no human presence at all. But then, a whisper slithered through the keyhole. Open the door, Lucas. I finally found you. It wasn't Aiden's voice. It wasn't even close. It sounded like 100 overlapping tones. Children, adults, old men, infants, all speaking the same sentence in a single, cracked harmony. My pulse hammered in my ears. I didn't answer. I didn't move. The whisper changed. You left the gate unlocked. Someone walked in. A chill wrapped around my spine. The front gate of the abandoned school. Yes. In part 3, I had run out without locking it. It had been waiting since then, watching, following me back. The recording device in my hand suddenly turned on by itself. The LED flashed, and Aiden's distorted voice played again. Only this time, there were new words that weren't there before. It copies. It learns. It becomes the last person you failed to save. My fingers trembled. Outside, the thing dragged its knuckles slowly across my door, scraping, 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 until a thin crack appeared in the wood. Then it began to laugh. Not loud, not aggressive, soft, childlike, almost playful. Open it, or I'll show you his face right here. I squeezed my eyes shut. Aiden's warning repeated in my skull, don't look at its face. The emergency light outside faded completely. Darkness swallowed everything. And then, silence. No knocking, no whispering, no shadow under the door. Just quiet. I dared to breathe again. When I glanced at the door, there was now a handprint on it. Large, inhuman, pressed into the wood from the inside. My heart stopped, because I hadn't opened the door. Something else had. And from the far corner of my apartment, a voice I knew too well whispered, Lucas, why didn't you wait for me? And now, she existed in two forms. The real Emily trapped inside, and the imitation walking, speaking, and watching the outside world. She struggled, tried to push away the black hands. But the reflection smiled wider, whispering, we never stop. Never, never, never. Emily's vision blurred. The void began folding, stretching, compressing around her. She tried to reach the edge of the light, but it moved away, always just out of reach. Then, just as her strength failed, the void stilled. Silence. Absolute silence. A single phrase echoed in her mind. Calm, deliberate, and human. And now you're one of us. Her last thought, before the darkness swallowed her completely. The sounds never stopped, and now, they are inside me, forever. The screen goes black. Somewhere in Portland, Emily's apartment is quiet. The front door is locked. But if you listen closely, the faintest tapping, soft as a heartbeat, echoes from the walls. And the voicemail from Emily's phone plays itself. Don't leave. The entity waits. The sounds never stopped. If you enjoyed this horror story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell icon for more terrifying stories.